Hello and welcome to a programming tutorial where we're going to take this base image here and we're going to turn it into something a little more fun, such as maybe one with some red text or green text or yellow text. Or if you actually want to see what's really happening in between these, we kind of go from red, slowly move into the green, and then slowly move into the yellow. So since we aren't going to need any of these examples right now, I am just going to get rid of them because I don't need them. Now you're probably wondering, well, what is this environment? Well, it actually says right here, PyCharm Community Edition. And what exactly are we programming in? Well, if you're not familiar, it's going to be Python. So let's bring this up so we can actually get a look at it. Now, if you do not have Python, then you can go and get it. It's free. It's a nice environment. So Python is a good little language, and you just have to go to their website, python.org, go to downloads, and then you have all of the download information you need. Now I am using Python 2.7.11, or 11 I guess, so if you see anything in this video or the couple videos about anything weird, then just know I'm using this version. There might be some syntaxes between the two, I don't know, never used 3.5. I'm using 2.7. That's all you really need to know. And I've also got PyCharm open here. It's from JetBrains. So you can go over to JetBrains/PyCharm and you will find PyCharm here, and there's a big download button, and that's pretty much how you get everything. So, now, there are a couple of things we need. Now, before I start this project, let's just do our imports because we're going to use Pillow, which is a fork of Python imaging library, which is what's allowing us to do all of the fun, cool image stuff. So we basically just need, from Python imaging library, we need to import three things. And the first one's going to be image, second one is image font, and then we also need image draw. That is what we need. We need these three things. However, the first time you actually type these things out, you will probably get an error saying these don't exist. And that's because you need Pillow. So to do that with PyCharm, if you actually have PyCharm at this point, then you can just go to File, go down to your settings, and then you will notice in the settings window, there is a particular spot that actually has your project name. See, my name is Thumbnailer over here, and Project Thumbnailer. If you hit on this and actually look at the interpreter, it'll come up with this page. You probably won't have anything here. You might have one or two of them. But all you have to do is come all the way over here, make sure you have your Python version selected, click the little plus arrow. You're going to get this big dialog, and if I can shrink it a little so you can see the whole thing, then all you have to do here is type out Pillow, and it's this one from Alex Clark. This is the one you want. It's already highlighted in blue. I don't need to install it. You would click Install Packages down here, and then everything should work for you. It'll show up over here, and all will be good. So, how about we actually get started with a little bit of the programming? Now, let's see. The first thing that we're probably going to need with this project is let's load up our base image. So let's call this base image, and we're going to set this equal to image dot, open? Yeah, image dot open, and then we need to give it a path, and that's going to be base thumbnail.png. So now we have our image, base thumbnail, this thing right here, is opened and stored into base image. So now that we have it, we can actually start doing some stuff with it. Now the first thing we want to actually do with our image is grab a copy of it, because when we actually start working with this, then we don't want to be editing the base image. We don't want to change stuff around it. We don't want to draw text on it, because then we're going to run into problems where we draw upon drawings. So it'd be just like painting over an already painted picture, and then you just start, it doesn't look right. It would be problematic for what we're doing. So actually, let me put this in a for loop right now. So what's the Python for I in, it's range, right? For I in range, yeah, start, 1, we'll do this 5 times. And then we're going to grab a copy. And this is why we're grabbing a copy, because if, like I said, if we're going to use the base image right here, then we would basically use it 5 times, and we'd edit it 5 times, and we don't want to do that. So we're going to grab a copy of an image, and then we're going to create something of this image. So an image drawer, I'm just going to call it image draw, but basically this is the thing that draws on the image. So image draw is going to be equal to an image draw dot draw image. So now we're grabbing our thing we imported up here, the image draw, and we're going to add dot draw to the image, and that's going to be stored in this. So now when we want to draw something, we call this image drawer. So image draw dot, what are we going to draw? Let's say we want to draw some text. Now text takes quite a few arguments. So self is only if it's some kind of object. Ours is not an object, so we can ignore that. It needs an XY coordinate. It needs the text you want to draw, the color of the text, and then a font. Well, let's start filling that out. So it wants an X and a Y. Well, we are just going to put in 0 and 0. There, X and Y. It wanted some text, so we'll just put in hello. Hello world. Because why not? As any program, we always do hello world first. For whatever reason, no one really knows. I'm sure some people actually do. What color do we want? We need a tuple, and we're just going to feed it in black, which is 0, 0, 0. We'll actually create that as a variable, and we can name it later on. And then we need a font. Well, we don't have a font, do we? So we're just going to get a font called font1, and let's make that font somewhere up here. So this is why we need the last bit. So fonts, now font1 is equal to image font. This is the last thing we imported. And the image font, we're going to use dot true type. And our true type, this takes a path to wherever the true type font is. And my true type font just happens to be, where is it? C drive. Windows Fonts Impact TrueType. So I'm going to use Impact because I like how Impact looks for a particular thumbnails. And this is just the path. I'm feeding it the full path because I've had issues where sometimes it doesn't always load it. There's another way to get fonts using pill, but that's never worked for me, at least in my case. I don't know if it's even a working function. But now we need to give it some size. So this is the path, that's the font we want to use. And what size do we want? I know the images are big, so I'm going to use a big font. You would use a smaller font if you have a smaller image. It all depends. So now we have our font created using the image font. We might make one more of these later, but let's see how this works. So what's happening? Well, we're taking a copy of our image. We're creating a draw object. Well, it's not exactly an object. We are creating a draw thing. Now we don't actually have to label this as image draw. We could just say image draw image dot text, which would be perfectly valid because see it pops up right here in the IDE, and then we could start drawing. We're just storing in a variable to save us time when we want to draw stuff. So this should work. Will it show us anything? No, it actually will not show us anything, and that's because we're not saving anything yet. Let's do our final thing. So what's the last thing we want to do? Well, image.save, it's not appearing. That's weird. Anyway, image.save, what are we going to save it as? Well, let's just call it first.png, give it the extension to let it know it's not changing or converting or anything. And let's just print done to tell us that we are done this particular iteration, or at least tell us we're done every time we do this. So let's run it and see what happens. Done, done, done. Well, we got 5 dones. Did we get any images? Maybe. Okay, so it didn't go in the output folder. Alright, we can still open it up and take a look at it. So here it is, Hello World in nice big font, black text. Perfectly fun stuff. We'll add some color later on. Actually, we could probably do that right now. And this didn't actually go where I wanted it to go because I left out a piece. Okay. Why does it have to refactor anything? Finding, whatever. Output slash, because we actually want this thing to go into the output folder. I said kill you. Okay, we'll just run it again. This time we should have it fill up in the output folder. And it's only going to fill up 1 because, well, what's happening is we're creating it and then we're overwriting it and then we're overwriting it and then we're overwriting it because we're just saying it's
output first. This is the only one we're actually creating. So let's call this an out thumbnail. And now we're going to do something really fancy. Let's add some stuff to it. Let's end this right here. Say that these two strings are going to be added together. And then let's add something. Well, what could we add? It just so happens that we have an I variable that is a number. So now what we're saying is we're going to call this output thumbnail plus the string of I, whatever this is, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, plus .png. So let's run this time, and can I delete this thing yet, or is it still going to be weird? Okay, now it lets me get rid of it. Good. And we don't need the other first either, just because those are invalid at this point. Let's run this again. This time we have a few more outputs. So now you can see out thumbnail 1, out thumbnail 2, out thumbnail 3, out thumbnail 4, out thumbnail 5. And of course they're identical at this point because we're not actually drawing anything unique to them. But you can see now we're dynamically naming them. So they're not all one file. Now we get lots of them. And of course we get 5 dones in the console just to let us know that we are actually creating them. And if we wanted to, we could say done, done, put a tab in there. Done. Okay, and then we can say something like, plus the string of I. And then what this will do is this will actually print off done 1, done 2, done 3, done 4, done 5. Okay, so all done. All good. And then if we wanted to, I suppose we could say completed program like outside of the for loop, but that feels unnecessary. So what we got working right now is we're actually creating some thumbnails, which means what's the next step? Well, we don't want to just draw boring text. We want to draw more fun stuff. We want to draw some colored text, kind of do what I showed at the beginning where I had the project do all of these fancy colors. That's kind of what we want. So let's get some colors in here. Let's see, we have fonts. Let's put colors here. And I just like to put a little comment, tell me where stuff is. And, well, colors are tuples, which means we would call a color black, and we would set it equal to a tuple. So, black is nothing, nothing, and nothing. So this is black. And now where we actually said our color of our text is nothing, nothing, and nothing, now what we can do is we can just call on that variable black. And now you see, boom, we are actually able to use it. And this will do the exact same thing. But we want more than just black. We want a bunch of them. So let's save time and just copy some over. And of course we can, fix all the little stupid syntax errors if we wanted to. But now what we have here is we have a bunch of colors. So we got red, which is 255, R, nothing, nothing. Green is nothing, 255 green, since these are RGB values. And then we have blue. So now we have the base colors to work with. So we can do a little bit more now. So now we have a bunch of colors. Say we didn't want this to be black. Say we wanted some nice solid blue text. Let's hit run. Open up the new thumbnail and boom, now we have blue. But now it becomes apparent these things don't have an outline. All right, they don't have an outline. So we need to draw them an outline. Well, Pillow, Python imaging library, it doesn't have anything to actually draw an outline. You can't there's no actual function that says, text dot draw outline. There's not, image draw dot text, with outline or whatever. That's not something that exists. So we need to take care of the outline ourselves. Well, how are we going to do that? Well, let's change this up a little. Let's start creating some functions, because functions are always fun because they just let you organize things. So we're going to define a function, and we're going to call this draw text. And then this is actually going to take over this right here. So we can just, copy this over to our draw text function. And now draw text is going to actually draw the text. And somewhere in here, all we're going to do is, call draw text. Now, we're going to want to give it more arguments than this. So currently it takes no arguments. It's just going to basically just replaces the line of code. So draw text. Well, what are we drawing it on? Well, we need our image that we're going to draw it on. So we're going to call this thing our image draw because we actually need that. We need to tell it what is doing the drawing. Well, that's the image draw. So when we pass it our first argument, we need to pass it the image draw. Now, of course, I can name these things differently. Like if I wanted to, I could just say this thing is now called draw, and I actually will do this. So now we're just going to pass it in image draw, call it draw, and then we're going to say draw.text. And now this gives us the exact same thing. See, it still compiles, it still runs, still gives us the exact same blue stuff. So that's working. Well, what else do we want? So now that we know where we're drawing it, what else do we kind of want here? Well, what would be good? I don't know. The text we want to draw. So we don't have to, specify hello world every time. Maybe we want to draw something different, or at least control where it draws. So now we can line this up to be drawing text. How about we have color? Color's always nice, so what color do we want? And then we will draw it in that color. And then font, we're just going to leave the font as it is because we only have one font right now and we're not going to really define multiple fonts. So there, I guess that is the color we have. So now draw image. Now we just have to fill it out down here, image draw. What do we want the text to be? Let's pass it just our string. We will say, I don't know, let's pally. And then we need a color. We can use red this time because we haven't used red yet. There, now everything is working, and let's see if it runs. It should. I'm expecting it to. And now you can see we have nice big red text called Let's Play. Still doesn't have a border. We're going to fix that. So, let's go back. Now that we're actually doing all of our drawing in this function called drawText, let's put a little more space so that you understand these are different places. Well, what can we do inside of here? Well, we can do a lot of stuff. Let's create another one of these actually to start. Define draw num. And this is going to take a draw object just like before. It's going to take a number and a color. Now, what is draw num going to do? Well, we're going to do draw text. This time, I'm just going to put an offset so you guys can see the difference. 50-50, 590. Yes, that's definitely 50. 50-50. We're going to use string cast of number and then color and font 1, just like before. So we're doing pretty much the same thing. This time we're drawing, well, we're going to assume some type of number. So now we just, draw num. Going to use the image draw. We're going to use, let's just pass it, for right now, let's just pass it I, because that thing iterates all on its own. And we'll draw this blue. There. So let's see what draw num does. Well, create all the images again. Now you're going to notice there's this big blue number. Well, that's convenient, isn't it? The fact that we can just pass in I like that into some kind of function called drawNumber, where we're drawing text, which is the text of the number. We just have to cast it to a string, but we're drawing that number to the screen in, of course, whatever color we want, where we want it. So this loop seems to work, and of course, maybe we have 600 Let's Play episodes. Who knows? We're just keeping it low for now so that it doesn't take too much time to run, which creates 5 so you guys can see all the, differences. Now, stuff's still not lined up all that right, and it still doesn't have a border. So we're still just kind of viewing what do we have left to do. Well, where would be the best place to deal with the border? It probably wouldn't be down here. So how about we deal with it inside the functions? That would work, and it'd probably be the best thing. Now, here's the issue with borders. If I go back to one of my images here, here's the thing. We don't actually have any border function, like I said, which means if we want a border, what is a border? If we want a border, then we're going to have to make our own. So what is a border? Well, imagine this text skewed a little bit up, skewed a little bit to the left, a little bit to the right, a little bit down, and then black. That would create a pretty low resolution border. What if we did it 8 times? I guess that would create a bit of a better resolution, wouldn't it? just take this same exact image and draw it around it, basically. I suppose that could work. How about we try that idea, see what happens? So, just to save a lot of time, I'm going to copy something over here. And of course, let's see, let's keep our colors and fonts next to each other. And then let's take this third thing that we need. And this is just going to be a list. And it's this thing. So what is this? Well, this is a position list. So if you look at it, position list, this is just, it's a bunch of tuples. You can see -1, -1. If we look at this as some sort of, how would I do this? Some sort of big grid, then you could say, if you have a bunch of boxes, say we have, a big 3x3. My art is absolutely amazing, so you're just going to have to, try and cope. So if we have a 3x3 grid and we say 0 is right here, so this is, 0, 0. That's what this one is. -1, -1. Well, that would be here, -1, -1. This one would be -1 in the x direction, 0 in the y. This would be -1 in the x direction, 1 in the y. This would be 0 in the x direction, 1 in the y, 1 in the x, 1 in the y, 1 in the x, 0 in the y, 1 in the x, -1 in the y. So this is the kind of idea we're doing here. That's what all these positions are supposed to represent in a 3x3 grid. So we have 8 neighbors, we could say. So what exactly can we do with this position list? Well, let's go to our draw number because this it's a bit smaller of a function to deal with. So what would we say? Well, for a value in this position list, right, we might do something. Well, what could we do for each value in this position list? Well, I'm thinking we just do this. We do what we've already done. And we tab it over so it understands it's happening. So what is happening? Now our position is going to be a little bit different. So we're just using 50-50 right now. But it's probable that we actually want a real position. So, maybe whatever our position x is, and then, we plus value at 0. And then we take whatever our position y is, and we add the value at 1. Since these are all tuples, value at 0 would return this number, and value at 1 would return this number. So when we say position x, it's whatever our position x is going to be. In this case, let's define these up here a little bit, just so you guys can see a little bit better what I'm saying. Let's, put it back to 50 like what we had before. So position x is 50, position y is 50, and even now we can, put it in here, just so everything is all the same. This one's position y. Whoops. This one was position x. Okay. So in terms, everything's the same. This is the exact same thing. We're drawing this with the color we put in, but we don't want to draw this with the color. We just want black because this is supposed to be our outline. Remember, this function is the outline. This is the outline. So what's happening is we're going at the position of x, which is the same one our normal text will be drawn at, except now we're going to add value 0 to it. Well, what's the first one for the value in the position list? Well, that's -1. So now we're subtracting 1 from our position x, and we're drawing. So that is going to create, well, I would imagine some type of border. Let's see how it runs. So now, if you notice, this isn't the same as the last one. If we actually zoom in here a little bit, and we scroll down some so we can actually see it, now you'll notice we have this really tiny hairline, black line, around our blue that we don't have around the red. This is our border. We've successfully created a border, but it's a little bit thin. So how might we make it a little bit thicker? Well, let's take our value, right? The value we're going to use, and let's times it by some offset. and we're going to create the offset variable in a moment. So times both these by some offset. Well, what's our offset going to be? Let's see, offset, let's equal this to, it's basically the thickness of our outline. Let's set this to 8. Let's see how that looks. Now we'll run this again, open up our image. Alright, that's a pretty deep outline. It might be a little bit more than I want, but I think I'll drop it down to 6 maybe. Probably. But now you'll see it's much thicker. That's because basically all we're doing is we're drawing 8 images around this main image. That's the idea for our border. We are literally just drawing the same image 8 times, one to the left, one above, one to the right, one below, one bottom left, one top right, and then one bottom right. We're just drawing the image in a circle around. Now, we could use more than 8 points. Maybe we want to use 16 points to make this a little bit more of a fine outline. We could. I think that's a little unnecessary for this example, so we're just going to leave it at this 8, and this was a little too thick for me, so we'll change the offset down to 6. And what might this mean? Well, say we have this, and we can just copy this straight up to the text because, we want the text to have the same thing. So what does text need? Position X equals 0, position Y equals 0. Offset equals 6. Of course, if we want, we can change up that a little bit so that, maybe the text is a thicker outline than the number. It's all preference. For value in position list, what are we going to do? The same thing. Except subtle differences. We don't have the string of number. Instead of string of number, we just have our text. And that's pretty much the only difference. And of course, this would use position X and position Y. And now when we check this out, open one of these up, you'll notice both now have this nice outline. So now both of them have this black outline. Makes it significantly easier to see because when you consider that these would be thumbnails, they'd be like this size or smaller on a screen. I guess it kind of depends on screen size, but depends on a lot of things, but it'd be pretty small. It wouldn't be incredibly easy to see. So if it's just red, then it might be really hard to see in a red background or even a yellowish background, something that kind of blends with it. But now that there's this black outline, it's significantly easier to actually see them. And we might want to go with a little bit larger font. We'll see about that. What was our font size? 256. 288. And actually, let's grab another font because I want a second one of these. So we'll call this one font 2 is equal to this, and this one is going to be what? 366 sounds good. Because now when we draw the text, let's use font 2. Now this is just going to add a little bit of variety, so our name actually looks larger than... Oh yeah, that's right. We didn't add font 2 to both of them. Actually, I didn't want the text. I wanted the number to be bigger. So font 2 and font 2. Now the number should look significantly larger than the text, just to kind of make it easier to see the number. There we go. Let's play number 1, number 2, number 3, number 5, all that good stuff. And if we wanted to, where is it? When we actually draw the number, see how we just use string number? If we wanted to, we could just add that little, number sign plus it and do that in both places. And what this will do is this will just, statically add this number sign. That way we always know it's some kind of number. There, now we have that number, and now, we can kind of tell it's counting something. Alright, what else do we have to do before this program is working well? Well, the positioning of everything is pretty bad. When you think about it, we're just, positioning this stuff randomly. We're just kind of giving it 0, 0 or 50, 50. That's not very accurate positioning. Do we want to just, randomly use values until we find something? Probably not. We probably want something that, maybe finds the position for us because we're too lazy to, keep changing these values. Like maybe, 100 is centered. Well, maybe it's not. And we'd have to keep playing with those until we actually did get something. So let's not do that. Let's take something. Let's take a variable, we'll say text size, and this is going to be equal to our draw, which is the thing we're passing through, dot, what was it? No, it's not font, it's, draw dot text size. That is what we're looking for. And then we feed this thing a string and a font, and it will return another tuple of the size of the thing. So, well, what is our text? Well, it's text, as it turns out, and we're using font 1. Okay, so that's going to give us a tuple of text size. What else might we need before we know this? Well, we need the base image size, and that is just going to be the base image dot size. It's a pretty easy function, actually. And now we have both things that we need. And do I need parentheses on this? Maybe not. I don't think so. Okay. So, our position x. Well, what is that going to be? Well, we know it's going to be the base image size over 2. This will put the left corner of our text box that is created at the center of the image. But we don't want the left corner of the text box. What we want instead of the left corner of the text box is we want the middle of the text box. Well, how do we find that? Well, we have something called text size, and we know the position 0 is the x of it, because when you actually print text size out, it gives you a tuple. So minus the text size divided by 2. Okay, so we're grabbing the middle of the image, and then we are pushing it to the left by half of the text box. All right, that should be centered. And what about the position of our y? Well, we're going to use base image size again. And this time I'm going to do it. I kind of like my images to be closer to the top. So I'll do divided by 3, and we'll minus text size at the y. So now this is the height of the text by half. Text size. If I can learn to spell ever. All right. Now we're setting position x and y. Let's see what this looks like. Oh, okay, so I'm just talking about the tuple thing. Base image size is its own tuple of its width and height. So we need to put in 0, so we actually get the int value inside of there, and we need to put in 1, because that's what I was doing wrong. Now let's run it. There, now no errors. And now we'll see this thing's centered on its own. So if we used a different sized image, it would kind of center on its own. It's too low for me also. I'm just going to put a hard drop in here of, 60 pixels? Would that look okay? Okay, yeah, so just minusing 60 pixels is pushing it up a little bit, and I like the name of this to be a little bit more toward the top. Now we just have to deal with the blue thing, which is the number. So let's, explore this exact same method down here. So we need both things. We need the text size again, and we need the base image size. This time it's not text. It is the string of the number. Actually, are we passing the string of the number? Okay, we're just passing it I, so yeah. We need the string of the number, because this is actually passing an int value right here. So, what is x going to equal? Well, we want it in the bottom left corner, but we don't want it exactly in the bottom left corner because then it will like clip into the side of the image a little bit. We want a little bit of padding. So let's put like a 25 pixel padding. Now for the y, what we want is, we want it bottom left, or at least that's where I'm going to put it. You can put it wherever you want. You just have to try and figure out where it might be. So what is this one supposed to be? This will probably be our base image because we need to know how tall our image is first off. So base image size at 1, which is how tall our image, minus the text size at 1, which is how tall our text box is. I said equals, not minus. Have to check those syntax things before we get errors. And I want this thing to like always have the same corner offset. So if I just say minus position X, then this will allow it to have the same left and bottom padding. Let's take a look. Okay, I've done something horribly wrong because that should not be getting eaten by the bottom of it. Okay, that's what's wrong. I'm not using the right font because I'm using font 2 for the number, remember? So because I was saying it's font 1, it's returning me a much smaller size than my thing actually is because font 2, if you remember up here, is significantly larger than font 1 by about 100 pixels. So now let's run it. Now we should see, there we go. Now we have Let's Play, nice black outline. Now we have number 1 over here. If we look at number 2 and we zoom out a little bit, we'll see now we have number 2 and so forth. Okay, so let's take a look at the very last thing we need to do. Now this video is actually running really long and I didn't intend for it to be this long, but we just kind of want to do everything in one go. So I want two more functions. Define, let's call one create thumbnail. Yeah, create thumbnail, and we're going to put all of this inside the create thumbnail. That way, we can just call create thumbnail whenever we want and create thumbnails. And the last thing we're actually going to do is we need something called, what is it? Define, how do I put it? We're changing the color, so what do we need to call this thing? Get new color, because we're actually returning something, whereas previously we haven't returned anything. And get new color. Pass is just something I'm going to hold there so it doesn't throw errors at me. Get new color. Well, how do we get the new color? Like, how does the logic for this work? How are we actually supposed to change a color? Well, we need some starting color. So let's call it start. We need an end color. So, we want to go from green to blue. We need to know how many iterations it is. So how would I word that? Like how many images do we have? So max images. Like honestly, there's no good word for this. You'll see what I'm trying to talk about hopefully later. I'm explaining this terribly. And we need one more thing. We need to know what image we're on. So index. Because if we're on image 9 out of 10, then we're almost to our end color. Whereas if we're on image 1 out of 10, we should be right at our start color. That's how it should work. So we need a bunch of things. Well, let's look at this. Change red is going to equal something. So what is the change in red going to be? Well, I'm going to take our start at 0. Now we're passing in tuples, actual color tuples. So we have 0, 1, and 2. That's what everything is going to be. So, change in green is going to equal pretty much the same thing. It's going to equal, start at 2, sorry, because start at 1, green is the second value, which is in position 1 because off by 1, and then change in blue is also equal to start, except this time at 2. So that's why they all start. Let's just deal with red for now. So it's our start position, which means start minus our end. So if you think about it, the change in R, say we are currently at red, say we're starting at red, it's our start, 255, minus our end, say we don't want any red pixels in our end color, so 0. So when we start, it's 255 minus 0. Well, that's going to return 255. So say we're getting close to our end color where we have 0. Start is 255, still minus 0. So we need to know something about the index. We need to kind of know where are we so that we have an idea on how many times we need to iterate through this. So it's start minus end to try and find out the difference in pixels that we have. And then we need to divide it by, what was it, max images. So say we have 10. Now the change in R is about 25. So we need to change our R by 25. Our R is at 255. Changing it by 25 would make it going up. We want it to go down. So how do we make it go down? Well, we just kind of casually throw in a times -1. Because now this inverts it. So now we have our start, 255 minus 0 is we're at 255. Now we're at -255 divided by 10, so now -25. That's how much we need to change R. That's actually very accurate. Now here is a small problem we still have. Let's say, for example, that our start is red, our end, like I said, is nothing, so 0. Now we have -25 over the max images. Well, negative 255 over the max images, so it's like -25. But this is -25 every single time. So even as our start color, which we're going to be passing back through it, because our start color isn't always going to be perfectly red. Now this would work perfectly if we always said our start color was red, but our start color is the color we're currently at. So after the first pass, instead of being 255, it's going to be 230. And then we're going to take 230 minus none divided by max images, and it's still going to return a very high number. It's, let's just do it this way, and I'll show you guys why it doesn't quite work the way we want it to. But all of these values need to be integers. So I need to actually do math.floor this whole thing. So this is basically our entire function. This is the thing that's going to calculate our change in our color. So we just want to, paste this a few times. This time we're going to be using it at 1, end at 1, start at 2, end at 2, all over the max number of images. We don't even need index in this example, but we will get to it. So let's see. If this is the get new color, currently we're just finding what our change in the color is. So what is our actual new color? Well, let's take R, and let's, for, red is going to be equal to start at red. So our new color, in the red pixel of our new color, or the red value of our new color, is going to be start, plus the change. Makes sense? And we just need to make sure that this is an integer, because I can already see that this division here is going to probably turn up a floating point, and then even though we're math.flooring it, it still would be, whatever number 0.000, whatever floating point goes to. So we need to actually cast a tune in because we need all of these to be integers. That's entirely required. And we're going to do this for every color. So get a couple more of those. We have red, green, blue, and of course these are just going to change. This will be change in R, this will be change in green, change in blue. And then, well, what are we returning? We're actually going to return a tuple of red, green, and blue. So this is our new color. We are returning a tuple of the new color that we're calculating. So this is actually giving us our brand new color. This is how we're going to change colors. So it's not going to work. I'm just going to point out that because max images is all by itself here, it's going to have problems. We're going to need two variables. Say we don't want our text, say we don't want it to be the same color. Like currently we have one is red and one is blue. I believe that's what it was, yeah. red and blue. We don't want them to be the same color. So we need something to store the actual color value of those so that we can get new color values. So we're going to call number color is going to be equal to, just do blue for now, and then text color is going to be equal to red for now. We'll set these like this just to start. We want to actually put these into our function so that we can, change it up when we want to. Okay, so we need to get new colors. Now that we have our colors, we kind of need new colors. So num color is going to be equal to something. Well, that is actually going to be this function we just made. So get new color is what we called it. Get new color. And how do we know what kind of new color we have? Well, we're going to pass it ourselves. That's our start colors. What are we? What we are. Then we're going to say whatever our next color is. So what do we want to change blue to? Well, we want to change our blue to yellow. We don't have yellow. We want to change it to green. That'll work. And then we just need to pass it an iteration. So I'm going to pass it I. It doesn't do anything, remember that. And then whatever our max is. Well, that's 6. Because see how our range is currently at 6? That's our max number of iterations. It's actually 5. And I believe this N is supposed to be capitalized. Okay. There. That's the number color. Well, what about the text color? Well, that's also a get new color. And it's going to pass, text color. We also want this one to go to green, just, for argument. And it's the same parameters otherwise. So these are going to set the number color equal to the new color. So now, when we do our draw text and we say we want our text to be red, we want our text to actually be text color. And when we say draw number and we want our number, we actually want it to be equal to the num color. That way, every time this goes through, this loop right here, every time it runs through, it goes get your new color based on, what you want to do. So you want to go from blue to red, or you want to go from your current color to green, and then draw it at your current color. So that every time we do this, it's actually going to keep changing its color. Let's actually, no, this isn't going to work. We need to call our function. So let's just call create thumbnail. There. Now it's going to work. Now we get our, done 1, done 2, done 3, 4, 5. Let's see. Let's play is red. That's blue. We should zoom out a little, make it easier to see. Okay. So it's working. Let's actually open it up in this because it's a heck of a lot easier to see the color change. Alright, that's not what I was expecting. Why did it get darker? Why doesn't it appear to be working? The way we might expect. It just looks like both colors are getting darker. Well, that's because we're not doing it right. What we're doing is we're saying our start minus our end divided by the max images we have. So the max images is 5 in this example. So start is 255 for, say, our text, which is red, and we're trying to go to green. So our start is 255 minus 0 divided by max images. So divided by 5. So that's about 50 each time. So the change in R is 50. Next iteration, our start is going to be 200. Minus end is 200. Divided by 5, now the change is 40. So now it's 160 minus nothing divided by 5 is about 30. So you're seeing this actually doesn't go below about 100. Like, it can't, because our value is getting smaller and smaller, and our max images is staying the same. So when we divide, we're not subtracting enough. We're subtracting less and less. So we're not actually changing the color properly. And when we're adding the green value, which is our change in green, which our start is 0 and our end is 255, which makes negative 255 times it by negative 1 makes it 255. So we're actually adding green color. then it'll never actually get to its final value because the start is not always red. It's what our color currently is. Now, if you wanted it to always be red, like if we just poured our start color as red, say, instead of the color we currently have, so where do we do? Instead of saying this is number color, we called this blue. Then we took this and called it red. Then when I played this, you would notice it looks a little different. So I'm going to open up this one again because I like this one better. Now you're going to notice, oh, what's wrong? So this should have worked, right? No. Here's the issue with that method of doing it. When we pass blue to green over our max images, our start is always the full value. And our end is what we want. So it's like we're only ever changing our color once. That's the problem with that method. So what do we actually do to fix this? Well, let's put those back. So we need to use an index. We need to know where we are at so we can change this up a little bit. Well, max images, just so I don't get index errors, I'm going to +1, and then I'm going to minus our index. So what is this actually doing now? Well, let's copy it over to all the other ones. So paste, paste. Well, now what this is doing is this is taking our index. So say we're at image 4 out of 5, right? Max images is 5. We're on image 4. 5 minus 4 is 1. And then we're just adding 1 because the very last image is going to be max images of 5 minus 5 divide by 0. We do not want that. That is terrible problems. We don't want to try and do that. So we're just going to add 1 to make sure we avoid that always. So the lowest we can do is divide by 1. So now when this is, say, 5 minus 5, then we just divide by 1, which means our start minus our end. That is our answer. That is our change in R, which if we divide by 1 can potentially, it's the entire difference. That means if there's only one image, right, and our index is 1, then our start is 255, our end is 0, our change in R is negative 255. Like we're going to go the entire value in one image. Whereas if this is, half, say image is 6, this is divided by 3, then we're going to go 1/3 of our difference per iteration of get new color. So now let's take a look at this. Okay, so what I figured out what the issue was I was missing a set of parentheses, because this parenthesis right here, I am actually supposed to do this subtraction first, where I do start minus end before I times it by -1. But without this parenthesis here, what's happening is -1 times start minus end, and that's not actually what we want. So we're getting wrong values. Now I just ran this, and let's check a look and see if it's a little bit different. Now we're changing the colors one time before we actually do the 0th image, before we do the first image. So because of that, we're actually seeing a little bit color change on the first one. And then of course we go into more color change, and then we have the green that we wanted. So we can see that we're slowly moving toward green with each tick. Boom, now we have colors changing. So we want to make this, well, one last thing we really want to do just to completely finish up this exceptionally long tutorial that I said was going to be quick. And that's when we call create thumbnail. We want it to create everything based on our preference, because maybe we want to wrap this whole thing, this create thumbnail function, into something else. Well, create thumbnail. What do we want? Well, we want color start, color end. You set them equal to each other if you don't want color change. And then we want from start to end, I guess. So let's see. Num color, and of course we can set 2 colors. I'm just going to say that the text and the number are the same color. So this is going to be color start. Oops. So we start at color start. We go to color end. And what do we start at? Well, our start is where our iteration begins, and our end is where our iteration stops. Plus 1. Because if we start at 1 and we end at 5, then we'd only make 4 because Python doesn't ever consume the last value. So if we put end as 5, it would only go up to 4. It wouldn't actually do the fifth one. And now we have I for our iteration, and our max is whatever end is, because that's how many images we have to make. So now all we have to do is when we call create thumbnail, we just have to say we want to go from red to blue, from 1 to 5, and then call it again. We want to go from blue to green, from 6 to 10, 120, 6 to 10. I don't know why it gave me a second set of brackets. And maybe we want to do create thumbnail one more time. From green to green, from 11 to 14. Maybe this is how many we want, and it's doing that again. I think it's auto giving me brackets, and I'm making my own. There. Now we're calling create thumbnail 3 times, and we're giving it different iterations, different colors. Let's see what it does. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't. So I'm getting a bunch of images over here in my folder, and there you go, you see them all. So let's take a look. Well, this is our red to blue. Again, it's doing the iteration the first time. What we probably should do is not let it do that iteration the first time. How would we do that though? It's probably more effort than it's worth handling at this moment. We could just not call change color until we draw it, I suppose, because I guess this is kind of weird. I wanted it to be red on my very first one. So all we'd really have to do is, the color changing function, move it. So we draw our stuff first, then we change the color. That'll work. There we go, let's run it now. And I'm just letting it create all my new images. Take a minute. For some reason it creates them kind of slow. There we go. Now we have a perfectly red image, just like we wanted. So let's take a look. We are going from, what is our first thing? Well, we are creating a thumbnail from red to blue between 1 and 5. So red, less red, purple, more purple, blue at number 5. Okay, that's exactly what we kind of wanted. Now we're going to go from blue to green on 6. So 6, getting blue, starting to get not blue, starting to become green, and kind of is green. And now from 11 to 14, we just want to stay green. So boom, we stay green. There you have it. And of course, you don't have to use just these solid colors. I can use any number of colors. I just have to, define what colors I want. Say up here, maybe I want yellow, maybe I want pink, purple itself. A bunch of different colors. I could also use many different fonts. And I can change, of course, the width of whatever it is. If I want it, I can change the width of my outline. So currently, I have this nice little program that all by itself is generating me a whole bunch of images of various colors. That's pretty cool. Anyway, thank you all for watching. This has been just a short tutorial on creating thumbnails using Pillow from Python and kind of, getting the nice little things to change color just to add a little bit of flair as well as centering them on the screen nicely. Anyhow, thanks for watching. This is PTT GRW signing out.